Hi everyone, let's have a look at the first subsystem that we're going to be looking at in English language, and that is phonetics and phonology, which basically means how we make all of the sounds and how the sounds work in our language. So first of all, people ask, so why is it phonetics and phonology? The difference doesn't matter too much, but basically phonetics is how we make the sounds, and then phonology is how we actually use the sounds, or how the sounds function as the building block for our language. They work together pretty well as a topic though, because obviously, it's all kind of talking about sound. It's all talking about the same thing. Now, the sets of sounds that we use to build our language are called phonemes. So each of the building block sounds that we make our words out of is called a phoneme. Now, there's a little bit of a problem. If we want to study the sounds in any particular kind of language, we need some way to actually write them down. And so written language is kind of abstract. It's just squiggles on a page that are somehow representing sounds to us. And that means it's kind of artificial when you write things. And a lot of languages can be really inconsistent in what sound, what letters in our writing system make. English is famous for that. English spelling, you would know from having to do spelling tests in primary school, it can be a bit confusing, even for native speakers. Most languages have some inconsistency in their writing system. Some are really regular, but none of them can ever really be perfect because they're all ultimately artificial. And English is not the only one that has a really confusing sort of inconsistent one. When you learn French and there's silent letters everywhere, and some other languages like Tibetan and Danish and stuff also have crazy, weird sort of stuff going on in the spelling. So when linguists decide, okay, we need to write down the sounds, we have to have some kind of system to do it. For example, in English, we've got like a string of letters O, U, G, H. You guys would know there's lots of sounds that can make, like cough. It's making a different sound to though, and then not the same sound as through. And then it's making a different sound in plough, and then it's making a different sound in thought, and then it's making a different sound in enough, and then it's making a different sound in thorough. Like I'm up to 7 different sounds that O-U-G-H can make in English. So we've got to come up with some other way that we can write down the sounds. Little thing here, I thought this was kind of cute. I think this is real. I'm pretty sure. I haven't been able to find that it's, someone made it for a joke or something, but I'm told this is from an old book for Polish people learning to speak English. And because English spelling is a bit irregular, they have respelt English using Polish spelling. So up the top it says Dialogue 6, tea and coffee, price of coffee, L. How much do you pay usually for a cup of coffee? Charles, I generally pay 6pence, and for a small cup, 3pence. So for starters, we've got the problem that Polish doesn't have th, so they had to spell that with the S with the little accent on it. But it's interesting because people say, so how do we best write down the sounds so other people can understand what they are? Okay, so linguists, when they were trying to solve all these problems, how do we write down the sounds so that when you read this, what sound I meant, they created something called the International Phonetic Alphabet. Now, this is the one most widely used by linguists. We obviously don't use it in everyday life very often in the English-speaking world, but linguists use it because you consistently have one letter will always make one sound. So this symbol will make this sound and it's consistent. That's the idea of it. And so basically, linguists all around the world, this is what they use when they're studying language. Other people that use it are, for example, people who learn English as a foreign language. One of my friends who's from China, she saw me doing some preparation for class and she said, it's I forget what the Chinese name of the IPA is, but she said, we learn that in lesson 1 when we start learning English, because otherwise we don't know how to look up sounds in the dictionary. So she sees an English word for the first time, she's got no idea how that's pronounced, and so she flicks through the dictionary, looks at the IPA, and then she knows how to pronounce it. So they use it extensively when they're learning to speak English. Also, in the English-speaking world, like speech therapists or people who train people to do different accents for movies and stuff like that, they also would learn to use the IPA because they need a consistent way to transcribe sounds and know how the sounds are made and things like that. And you can do it on a broad level, whereas you're not being super specific, but you're at least writing roughly what the sounds are. Or you can use it on a narrow level, which means you are being extremely specific about tiny, tiny differences between this sound and stuff like that. Now, I'll show you an example of it. This is an IPA chart showing all of the sounds used in British English, or received pronunciation, which is what they call like posh English in the UK. And so here, up the top there, you've got a symbol for each of the vowel phonemes that we build the British people who speak posh received pronunciation use in their language. And then in yellow, you've got all the consonant sounds. So there's actually 44 of these sounds, of these phonemes that we build our language out of, that we build English out of. English has an alphabet with 26 letters, but we have 44 sounds that we need to use with them. That's why English spelling gets a bit crazy. Anyway, this chart here, the consonants would be the same as the ones I always use. The vowels at the top are actually slightly different to the set that I have because I'm an Australian. So some of my vowels there, for example, the vowel that they've used for bed, I use a slightly different. Mine's a little bit, my mouth is slightly more open than a British person saying the same thing. So I actually have a slightly different symbol on that one. But each symbol stands for that sound, and that's the important thing. Now, let's look at these words again that we had before. You can look up the IPA chart in your book. You don't really need to memorize it. As long as you know how to use it, you can always refer back to the book and work out how to transcribe each sound. But first of all, let's see if you can tell me how would you transcribe each of these in IPA using your book. Pause the video now and give it a go. Okay, if you've unpaused the video, I'm assuming that you've had a crack at it. In Australian English, I would transcribe them like this. So cough, you've got k off. Though, you've got th o. Through, plough, thought, enough, thorough. How'd you go? Okay, I'll see you on the next episode.